The Illinois men's basketball assistant coaches are all getting raises. Well, all but one. And Brett Bielema and Matt Rhule. Just how have they turned these programs around? Locked on Illini. Let's go.
You are Locked on Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another episode of Locked on Illini. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Simple reminder, you can find us on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Sonny Verma. You can find me at IlliniCast. You can find me at the Sonny V. And stay tuned. You can find me at the Big Ten Show on YouTube, where we'll be doing a live watch party for Friday night's game. It's Nebraska week. We know it's the biggest game of the season thus far. It's Friday night. The nation's going to be watching it. And so our Nebraska coverage is going to continue on this episode and probably the remaining ones this week. If you want to help support the channel, please just hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It costs you guys nothing. And it helps me immensely. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about this Illinois men's basketball assistant coach drama again. I kind of alluded to it about a week and a half ago, and then I finally felt comfortable enough talking about it in an episode, I believe last Friday or Thursday. And there's been a little update. The News Gazette reported that the University of Illinois Board of Trustees have a scheduled meeting for Thursday. And some of the items that are up for approval are the revised contracts with raises for 3 of the assistant coaches, one being Geoff Alexander, and the other 2 being Tyler Underwood and Zach Hamer. Now, note, I did not say Tim Anderson. And there's been this rumor that's pretty much out there now that it doesn't look like Tim Anderson will be coaching in Champaign next year. It doesn't look like the rumors about him going to Memphis are very substantiated. It just looks like it could be a contract thing with Brad. I don't think Tim Anderson's going to be coaching anywhere else next year. I'm not saying the story's confirmed that he's not going to be back, but I mean, if you read the tea leaves, it certainly looks like it. And of course, losing an assistant in September, just 2 weeks before practice starts, isn't ideal. I don't really think we're at the point where we're going to find an assistant to replace Tim. We may just go with the staff that we have. Of course, there's other questions that you all are going to have. The Chicago recruiting class in a couple years is going to be fantastic. And you kind of hope that there's no ill will between Tim Anderson and Brad Underwood and the Illinois program, because obviously Illinois is going to want to try to have some impact on that class. Morez Johnson, arguably one of the best performers of the summer and potential starter, was a Tim Anderson recruit. Is there any sort of relationship impact if Tim Anderson's gone? Now, granted, Morez can't leave for at least a half a semester, so I think the Illinois staff is going to have time to make an impression on him. If, and again, this is a big if Tim Anderson leaves, will that strain any sort of relationship with Morez Johnson? Now, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion from what I was told. Morez Johnson actually hosted a recruit over this past weekend. So with that being the case, if someone was having one foot out the door, or someone was feeling like one of their role models, one of their big influences in life, like Tim Anderson is for Morez Johnson, was being slighted in any sort of way, well, then I don't know how enthusiastic he would be about hosting a recruit. And would the staff really want to bring in a potential recruit and have him stay with a guy who already looks like he wanted to be on his way out? So maybe I'll talk about that in the future segment, in a future episode, whether this would impact Morez Johnson at all. Again, Derek Piper's talked about it on 24/7. I'm going to try to limit his premium material. I'm going to kind of focus more on what I've heard and his radio program, in that it just looks like a contract issue. And I don't know how you guys are going to feel about that. It's a bummer because if you had watched the Stephen Bardo show, I want to say at the beginning of summer, he had Tim Anderson on as a guest. And Tim Anderson was super enthusiastic about being in Champaign, being close to Chicago, and how much he seemingly really enjoyed his stay here and that he really didn't want to be anywhere else. And then, one major update since then is the hiring of Orlando Antigua. And Orlando Antigua is getting paid a very handsome $2.775 million for 3 years. And so Tim Anderson, who was also in line for a contract extension, like the other 3 gentlemen I mentioned earlier, maybe he felt like his value at this point was closer to Orlando, especially with the huge impact, undoubtedly, that Tim has had for the Illinois program and bringing in guys like Terrence Shannon, the before mentioned Morez Johnson. And, Tim is a huge influence in the city of Chicago. Now, how important is that? That's up for debate. And that's a debate for another day. Brad Underwood and bringing in a guy like Orlando Antigua, who very well could be one of the 3 or 4 best assistant coaches in the country. With Orlando, you bring in the top talents from all over the states and internationally and, in the Caribbean. All that comes with Orlando Antigua. Geoff Alexander has been doing a fantastic job recruiting internationally. I know a lot of people are not going to like the Tyler Underwood. I know he's kind of a lightning rod of criticism when it comes to Brad and the potential of nepotism. But by all accounts, Tyler Underwood had a lot to do with that offense that was one of the best, if not the best, in the country last year. He's been hitting it hard with recruits. He's been hosting. He's been going out to visit over the past year. I myself am willing to, at this point, give the benefit of the doubt to Tyler. I know he's not being paid all that much, and neither is Zach Hamer. But obviously, that does leave a huge gaping hole. You can't lose a guy like Tim Anderson and pretend like you're not going to feel it. Again, this isn't 100% done, and I'm sincerely hoping that there's a change of heart. I don't see it happening. At least, I'll be honest, I haven't gotten any updates personally since I made the video last week. But again, seeing we had recruits in town this past weekend and all members of the staff were there minus Tim. And now this News Gazette article reporting that they're all in line for raises and Tim Anderson isn't, kind of tells me that it's time to prepare for life post Tim. Now, it's a big loss, absolutely big loss. But at the same time, I talked about this. If there's one thing that Brad Underwood has done pretty well in his career is that when we lose assistant coaches and when it looks like the situation is dire, Brad always seemingly upgrades. And I don't know whether you can upgrade with Tim Anderson, but I don't think we're necessarily going to be taking a huge step back. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. College football season is well underway, and if you're looking to make your favorite team's home game, please check out the Game Time app. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through the thousands of tickets. Please customize your spot. Use all-in pricing Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And, of course, the lowest price guarantee. Or else the Game Time app will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, it's Illinois versus Nebraska week, and in particular, Friday night, the whole world is going to be watching these two 3-0 and, dare I say, ranked teams go at it on Friday night. And so there's a lot of Nebraska talking to do, and we're going to be talking X's and O's later on in the week. But I kind of wanted to start and bring in not only Nebraska expert, but my good friend Justin Adams, in from the Voice of College Football Nebraska channel, but not exactly a first-time visitor to Locked On Illini. Those of you who tune into the football coverage whenever we have a breaking news of a commit, Justin does a fantastic job of breaking down the film and really processing it so that a layman like myself can understand. Justin, thank you again for coming on.
Of course, man. Appreciate you having me back on. Excited to have our second game against each other this week, this time in college.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that Bears and Texans game. But Justin, 3-0. Now, again, a lot of people already had projected Nebraska to be 3-0 coming into this game. But obviously the vibes are so high. Dylan Rhule has played fantastic. Again, we don't need to get to the X's and O's yet. But I kind of wanted to today talk about Matt Rhule, because I feel like a lot of college football experts, college football fans, all have a level of respect for a guy like Matt Rhule and what he's done in college. And the same thing for Brett Bielema. If you look at really any lists of top coaches in the country or in the conference, both of those guys kind of are higher up on the list. And, you know, in particular, when Brett Bielema took over Illinois, we were down in the dumps. I'm not trying to pick on you guys, but we all know the story with Nebraska from where you guys were, 25 years ago compared to where you guys have kind of been. I would say maybe post Bo Pelini. Looking at the records, Bo Pelini was at least winning 9-10 games a year. Yeah. So, that was somewhat respectable, but it wasn't good enough for Nebraska fans. But that tells you exactly how high the standard was and how far you guys had fallen. So if you didn't mind, Justin, for a couple minutes, I just wanted to maybe kind of talk and compare about how our current coaches differ from their contemporaries and what kind of changes they've made in their respective programs to have all of a sudden Friday night become a top 25 ranked matchup between Illinois and Nebraska.
Yeah. So just when talking about kind of what you're talking about when it comes to, just how everything went after, Pelini, the downside started around Solich era. They fired Solich, but then Callahan came in, but then Pelini came in, was around 9 wins. Again, the standard was so high. He couldn't win the big games against the ranked teams or the high ranked teams. So he got ousted, and the rest is history. And Scott Frost was supposed to bring everything back around. And of course that didn't happen. And and just from every, I've talked to, I had Anthony Grant on, who was a running back for us in 2022 and 2023. So he had a unique perspective because he was in on both of those staffs. And what he kind of alluded to, and Scott Frost, we knew Scott Frost was a player's coach. He was like, I like Scott Frost. Scott Frost got along with all the players and stuff like that. But Scott Frost didn't have a standard, and he didn't really have a culture built there that was a winning culture. As we saw, we were losing 1-score games left and right. Last year, Matt Rhule had a little bit of the same issue, right? Losing a lot of 1-score games. And what Matt Rhule's even talked about is it was a culture of losing, right? Everybody got tight when the game was on the line. Everybody got real tense in those moments because they didn't want to be the one to make a mistake. And that started from the top down. Scott Frost was very loose in terms of how he ran his practices. He was very buddy with certain people. And it seemed like those people would always get, it seemed like there wasn't an accountability, kind of like with our offensive lineman that's going to be out of this game, Micah Mazuka, right? He made a mistake, got into it with a staff member on the sideline, supposedly is what we're hearing. And he was out last week and he'll be out this week. And that's a standard that wasn't there before, right? There wasn't a standard of accountability before. It was the guys that he wanted to play would play no matter what mistakes they make. And so what Matt Rhule has done is he's brought in this culture of physicality, and the way he's run his offseason programs is the way he's run it everywhere else. And it's basically a battle of attrition. And it's going to weed out the guys that don't want to be here, who aren't mentally strong enough to be here, who don't have the physicality to be here. It doesn't matter if you're a 6-year senior. It doesn't matter if you're a true freshman. If you come in and you practice the way they want you to practice, you do everything the right way, you're going to get on the field and you're going to play, because the way he sees it is if you come in and you grind every single day and you go through the hard stuff that they want you to go through, even in winter mat drills. When winter mat drills, they're talking about trying to build leaders based on a point system. And the way the point system worked is, if you were a leader and you went to a women's basketball game, you got points for that. Even though people didn't want to necessarily go to those games, the leaders would go anyways, right? Because you're supporting the other sports. And so it's this culture of like accountability, physicality, work ethic, but also character, right? You have to take care of what's in the classroom. He's about creating good young men first. And that will in turn create really good football players. And, he has a standard now where he talked about last year. It's letting people play through their mistakes. And if you let people play through mistakes, you'll get a confident player. However, you're not going to hold their hand. If they don't react to their mistakes, if they don't improve their mistakes, if they don't take accountability for their mistakes, they're not going to be on the field. And we've seen that. It's a developmental culture. He's about keeping guys in the program and kind of just instilling his, mindset and the way his beliefs are. And it's evident in the people we had come back. You look at Ty Robinson. Ty Robinson could have went to the NFL last year, but the reason Ty Robinson said he came back is because he believed in what Matt Rhule was building and he wanted to be part of the return. And when they were in the tunnel walking back to the locker room after the Colorado game, he said, "This is what I stayed for." He said that to Matt Rhule. He said, "This is why I stayed. I believed in you. Like I knew this would happen." Isaac Gifford, the same thing. Isaac Gifford could have gone last year as well. He stayed. They wanted to be a part of this. And it's just that changing culture. And it's really just getting that mentality of we're going to lose. We're going to create turnovers. We're going to do this. And he had to come in and he had to completely fix it. And I think a lot of us are surprised with how quickly that happened.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar story with Brett. You're talking about the guard who missed last week and looks like he's going to miss this week. We kind of have a similar issue on our side with Terence Brooks, the highly regarded cornerback from Texas, who, he started a college football playoff game. He was a former 4-star cornerback. A big deal was made out of him when he came with a substantial NIL investment that he took, but he hasn't really taken the field all that much for Illinois. And when you ask him, or when you ask the coaching staff why that is, they talk about them needing a level of consistency.
Yeah.
And that's just an accountability, which I think is exactly what you're referring to, that I don't know if necessarily was there for us in the past. I mean, Lovie Smith, again, I'm in a conundrum here because he's the greatest Chicago Bears coach of my lifetime, me also being a Chicago Bears fan. But as a Illinois fan, I mean, he was an abject failure. I kind of point it towards, I don't know if his heart was ever really in college football. I think, he had all the success that he did playing for the Bears, coaching the Bears. And obviously we made a Super Bowl, we made a conference finals. And then he took a paycheck, and he came to Illinois. And I think maybe he was excited for it at first. Mm-hmm. But, and I don't have to tell you this, the grind that a college football coach has to go through is a lot worse than what NFL coaches have to do. NFL coaches, technically, they don't have to go recruiting and try to talk to 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds throughout the season, try to, text them and try to make some sort of rapport with them. In the NFL, everything's very strictly business. But another thing I want your thoughts on, in particular about Matt Rhule and Brett Bielema and the positions that they're in today, is I think they've both had some relatively long careers at this point, but where they're at now they genuinely appreciate. They appreciate their situation. Matt Rhule obviously did very well in all his stops from Temple to Baylor, and then he decided to test his skills at the NFL level. And I think it's okay to say he didn't perform very well. Though who else is going to perform very well for Carolina right now with the way that train wreck of an organization is?
Yep.
Brett Bielema was an up-and-coming superstar in the Big Ten. He'd gone to 3 straight Rose Bowls at Wisconsin, and then it seems like he wanted to take on the challenge of going down to Arkansas, and he was humbled a little bit, and he was out of coaching for a little while, and he got to networking a little bit. And so it was interesting to me that Brett has talked about that when the Illinois job became open, he reached out to everybody to try to make Josh Whitman know that he was interested in this job. And I think his actions since being hired prove it. Like he's gotten like really close relationships with all the top high school football coaches. Now that doesn't seem like a tough ask, but Lovie Smith stopped recruiting in state. We didn't have a single top 20 recruit from the state of Illinois at the University of Illinois. So for me, Brett seems to really appreciate now where he's at, both in his career and the opportunity that's being afforded to him now in, I don't know if you call this a second or third chance, but he's running with it. And I feel like Matt Rhule has kind of a similar, view.
Yeah. Yeah. And, with the Panthers, like you said, it's one of those things where he came in there with a 7-year plan and they gave him 2 years and ousted him. And I think we know David Tepper, is the problem there, of course. But yeah, it's just one of those things where, the thing that happened when he got brought in, I was curious to know just how he was going to evolve with the ever-changing landscape of college football, because when he coached at Temple and Baylor, it was a different world in college football than it is now. And I think one of the things that shows, to me that he is built for this job and that he's kind of the, he's the man for this job and probably will be our coach long-term, is the fact that, he was able to come in and, he made sure that it was a place that fit for him in terms of his family and everything like that. But then when he came in here, he did everything a lot of the same ways that he had done it before. Right. But, he mended it a little bit to the NIL and transfer portal. However, he sticks to what got him to the dance, and that is recruiting, that is development, and building a foundation. And I've talked about, Colorado before on my channel a bunch, naturally, as a Nebraska channel, and how Deion's building a house of cards, without worrying about the 500-mile radius, without, having those guys that are coming into your program and that are going to be long stays in your program, and just going out and getting guys in the portal or just going out and getting 5 stars that may leave when they don't make the 2 deep. He gets guys that he knows are going to be in there for his program for the long haul. And those are the guys that he develops into those players that are like, 4 or 5 stars. Or now we're in the instance where, we have a couple 5 stars come to campus. Of course, we got Rhule, but we have Michael Terry, the number 1 athlete in the state of Texas, down to basically us in Texas and Oregon for him. And so, yeah, I think that was kind of the most impressive thing for me when he came over, is just how he still was able to kind of stick to what he knows, stick to his guns, but adapt it to the modern college football world, and just how quickly he was able to kind of just turn that into success. But, Bielema in a lot of the same ways, like we talked about, yeah, I think he's a perfect fit for that. And, Matt Rhule is just a perfect fit for what we needed at Nebraska and what they got from Nebraska. And I think the problem in Lied was we were trying so hard to get that prodigal son to return. We wanted so bad for it to be, Trell Roberts was our athletic director, a former Husker. Scott Frost was our coach, a former Husker. And it wasn't working. I think they wanted that to work so bad. And then all of a sudden we hire Matt Rhule, who's somebody who we wanted to, he was kind of at the back of our coaching wish list. I was like a Fickle guy and Luke Fickle guy and all that. But turns out that's what we needed. We needed a guy who wasn't going to come in and be the sexy hire. We needed a guy who was going to come in and get to work and get his hands dirty and put some elbow grease into this program and fix it. And that's what he's done.
Either way, no matter the result on Friday night, I do know that both programs are going to be grateful for the man that they have in charge. And speaking of that game Friday night, Justin, before I let you go, little programming note for those of you everydayers on Locked On Illini. Justin and I are going to be hosting a watch party on Friday night. On our other show, you've seen me reference it before. Do a search for Big Ten Show on YouTube. Justin and I are still trying to figure out. We might just be doing the full game. Join us. We're going to have not just him and I bantering back and forth, an Illinois fan and a Nebraska fan, but he'll be bringing some Husker fans along, and who knows, I might be bringing some Illini fans on to come on for a few minutes and chit-chat while we all watch the game. And we'll be having some national coverage guys who you may have or may not have seen on this show before. But Justin, before I let you go, please let the folks know where they can find you one more time.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on X, as you can see it on there, at @the_H-Town Husker, or you can find me in Nebraska football at the Voice of College Football. If you want to keep up to date this week on everything going on, I'm going to be watching the All-22 film and kind of giving a breakdown of, Illinois and some players that I've noticed from their team. So yeah, if you want to slide on over there and check it out, go ahead and do so. And I appreciate it.
And then we'll have Justin back in a future episode talking about the X's and O's side of Nebraska and what we can see from the Cornhuskers on Friday night. Thanks, Justin.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Illini fans, have you heard about Roy? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you all know, NIL has changed the game for athletes. Roy changes the NIL game for fans. Here's why Roy is different. You can directly support the players. Roy allows fans to directly back their favorite college athletes. With Roy, fans can play a key role in shaping the future of their favorite teams, while athletes maximize their name, image, and likeness potential. Engage with athletes on their NIL journey. By using Roy, fans not only support athletes financially, but also become a part of their name, image, likeness journey, helping them succeed both on and off the field. Download Roy for iOS or Android and enter referral code Locked On, and you'll be automatically entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Get the Roy app for iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team. Use referral code Locked On for an opportunity to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for more details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. Support the players and change the game with Roy. And that'll wrap it up for today's episode of Locked On Illini. Please, on your way out, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I know I ask this every day, but trust me, it helps us out immensely. And I promise you, it does not cost a thing. Again, Nebraska week will continue. We'll have more coverage of the game Friday night in future episodes this week. And also, I'm going to be bringing back Kent, Casual Big Ten, our usual Friday guest, as I get to talk to him about how he feels of his preseason prediction of Illinois winning just 2 games all year long. Until then, ILL, love you guys.